And welcome back to the Milwaukee Show, and we are here to talk about the end of an empire, the destruction of a king, and the end of a dynasty. And that is, of course, about the Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that has been so dominant. My main time of getting into hockey as a child, I would say when I was like really into and truly a fan of hockey, back in around 2014-15, is when Tampa Bay finally did set off, and they have been dominant my entire hockey watching life. They have been one of the best teams, but now, if just like the Patriots, they are coming to the end of that dynasty. Their nefarious acts of either blowing deflating balls or cheating the salary cap, their nefarious ways, their amazing skill, their true superstars are all slowly coming to an end of that amazing domination that they had in the NHL. And it's sad for me to see, because it's the same thing with the Penguins and the Washington Capitals, where these were teams that have been so good in my life of watching hockey, and they are finally just fizzling away like Thanos snapping, and their time of being the king of the NHL is over. Like the Penguins and like the Capitals, those days are done. It is a new NHL, and the Tampa Bay Lightnings, it is not anymore. This team has been so good and has been so historic since I've watched hockey. Back since 2014-15. So the beginning of the 2014 season to the end of the 2023 season. So just a month and a half ago now at this point. This team, in that time span, is first in wins. First in wins, beating out the Bruins and the Hurricanes, beating everybody. First in wins over that 9-year span. They are second in points, only behind the Boston Bruins. Second in points. They are number one in goals for, beating out everybody else. Number one in goals for. They're second on the power play percentage over that amount of time. They're like technically seventh in penalty kill, but that's because the Kraken and the Golden Knights kind of weigh those stats down. If you remove them, they're like fifth in power penalty kill. All of the best stats and numbers, they're in like the top 5 of all of the stats that you regard people of the best as. And not only that, the hardware and the achievements that they've gotten to as well. Of course, the President's Trophy, back when they tied the best season record that was broken by the Bruins this year, but tied the Red Wings for that President's Trophy, where then they were eliminated in the first round, but that's whatever. And then they've had 7 Eastern Conference Finals appearances in 15, 16, 18, 20, 21, and 22. 4 Stanley Cup Finals appearances back in 2015, and then, of course, 2021, the 2 years they won it back-to-back, and then losing to Colorado last season. And then 2 Stanley Cups, but you already know about those 2. Tampa Bay has been truly such a dominant force over the last 9 years. They are so good that things are finally coming to a close. And let me say, this team is far away from being bad. They are going to finally start going into that like twilight zone that the Penguins and the Capitals have been in for the last couple seasons now, where they'll make it into the playoffs. They're definitely a shoo-in for them, but then they lose in the first round. Or if they somehow make it past the first, they lose immediately in the second. And Tampa Bay is going to fall into that. And why, you ask? Why is this happening? What are you talking about, Owen? Like, why do you say this now? Are you just saying that because they lost the first round? No, but sort of. But the reason why, and I'm sure you've already read it on the board unless you're blind, is the depth, that OP depth that they've always had. From my time of watching them throughout the years, especially when they won the Stanley Cup and stuff, every single line, those 4 lines being game breakers. The first line of Braden Point or whoever was on the line at that time being an absolute just wrecking ball, with being glimmered with superstars of the time in Stamkos and Kucherov adding point over time, and Anthony Cirelli. But not just that, the 4 lines, they used to have guys like JT Miller on the team, Ryan Callahan when he was good, Tyler Johnson used to be really good for this team, Guys go on and on and on. Andre Palat, Yanni Gord recently, Blake Coleman. You got Alex Killorn, who just finally left. Ross Colton now is gone. Barclay Goodrow used to be a solid depth player for them. Corey Perry and Maroon now off the team. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare. All of those guys made such an amazing team through the offense. But the offense was always glimmered with their stars, and then they would have their depth pieces, right? Nemestikov comes to mind. Some guys just being really talented, third or fourth line guys that got the job done to make them go deep into those playoff runs, right? Where they would eventually either win the Stanley Cup, go into the finals, lose to the Stanley Cup champions most of the time. 2015, they lost to Chicago, who won the Stanley Cup. 2016, they lost to Pittsburgh, who then won the Stanley Cup. And then they lost to the Colorado Avalanche, who then lost the Stanley Cup, right? So a lot of times the teams that ended up beating them, maybe if they won that series, that was going to be their year as well. They could have had more than 2 Stanley Cups in that amount of time. But those 4 lines of offense, being every single one crafted so well, is gone. With the salary cap and slowly the guys who had good contracts needing raises that this couldn't fit their format, guys like JT Miller, guys like Johnson withering away over time with age, Ryan Callahan, same thing, having to leave the team, Blake Coleman on a really good deal and then having to flip him away to go somewhere else because they can't re-sign the guy. Every single year they had a good foundation, but then they brought in some overpowering figures that would push them over the line. But now, those days are gone. They're up against the ceiling. And especially, what's been hurt the most is defense. This team, for me, has always been the defense #1 team. Like, you go into the playoffs, it's like this team is the overpowering lineup, right? No other team is going to rival them defensively. They were the king. Well, at least one of the kings. Top 3 in the playoffs. Back in the day, you used to have Hedman and Sergachev. You know, Hedman, Sergachev always on the team. But then some years they would have Shattenkirk. Still had Chernak for a little bit of a while. But Braden Coburn, Girardi. You've got Ryan McDonough, who just departed last season. Guys like Anton Strawman. Every single 6 guy on the ice was an amazing defenseman that it was so hard to score against. Because not only could you not get past the defense, but then they had Vasilevsky or Ben Bishop in net that was going to shut you down no matter what. And now those days are gone. Now Chernak, Hedman, and Sergachev's all they got. 3 other guys just kind of fill out the lineup because you need 6 guys to put on the ice. Guys like Philip Myers, okay defenseman, but he's not going to be a game changer. He's not going to go out there and save your team for those 60 minutes that you have to play on the ice surface. They don't have those superstars all 60 minutes now. It's down to Hedman and Sergachev, and Chernak's pretty good, but not a superstar once again. He needs to be paired with someone else. And that's what's happened. This team is slowly, over time, has deteriorated and slowly has rotted into a good team, but that doesn't have that overpowering depth that they used to have. Take a look at the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche, our last 2 Stanley Cup champions. The Vegas Golden Knights, all 4 lines you put out there on the ice, everyone has some notable players. First line, you got Stone, you got, Eichel out there. Then next line, you've got Carlson, you've got Marchessault out there. I'm getting the lines all mixed up, but you get it. Those 2 guys, then another 2 guys. Then you've got Riley Smith. You've got Brett Howden, who's popping off and being amazing. Guys like Kolasar are putting in such a good, fantastic work. All 60 minutes, they're rolling out guys who are putting in the hard work, skating hard, hitting guys. The Lightning used to have that, but they have gone away. Now go look at their cap friendly. Go look at their depth charts. Those guys, they do not have it anymore. Corey Perry and Maroon, those guys, and Bellemare, who made up those bottom lines, are now gone. They're left with some guys like Connor Sherry, who are veterans that aren't going to really be able to pull their weight anymore. And all those things, gone. And it's not really because of mismanagement, but it's just because with time, all kingdoms come to an end. You can't hold it anymore. Rome grew so big it fell apart on itself, and that's kind of what happened with Tampa Bay. They did it for so good for so long, being just so well crafted to be sustainable for such a long period of time. They were so good for a decade now, and they're still good. They're easily going to make the playoffs next year, probably the next year after that. They're good guys aren't going anywhere, but maybe their skill might start dropping off. Steven Stamkos is 33 now, right? 33 years old, and Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point, Chiarelli, Hedman, Vasilevsky, these guys are all great, and I don't think they're not retiring or going away anytime soon. But what's one thing that's all of them have in common? They've been on these teams, maybe not Braden Point for as long, but Stamkos, Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky, what do these guys all have in common? They've been on this team for that amount of time, and guess what? They've been not just some of us out there, not me, but some of us, we get tired walking a day at the zoo or walking around a day at Disneyland and being tired after that, or a hike or something. Some of us, you do your workout or something, or you do something physical and you're already out of breath. And then some of us, of course, you're working out and stuff, you're fine with that. But these athletes are going through so much in 9 years. They're not just playing 82 games a season over those 9 years. They have played the most playoff games as well. These guys, up in their age, have been playing such a hard type of hockey, skating hard, pushing in to the ice 20,000 times a game, and over time being banged up and knocked against boards, Braden Point being crashed into his head, into the boards, Stamkos breaking his legs and stuff. All this is going to slowly start catching up to them, and their legs are going to start giving out that stamina, that speed, the grittiness. I mean, look at Stamkos. He's a great-looking guy, but here's the thing. He looks like he's exhausted. He looks tired. Guys like, and I'm not trying to rag on them or anything, but these guys are eventually, that's going to start catching up to them. They're going to start falling apart. And that skill of Stamkos being able to get to those 100-point seasons, and Kucherov the same way, is going to start going away, especially with the lack of that depth on this team and the winning ways. This team might finally start calming down, and they might not be able to have all that rhythm and energy that they get all 60 minutes of the ice. The other team will have the momentum and be the one pushing the pace and pushing the Lightning. Vasilevsky already kind of showing signs this year that maybe he's not the best goalie in the world still anymore. He's still amazing, and that's what I want to keep intact here. I am far from saying that this team is bad. They are nowhere close to being a terrible team out of playoffs. This team, I say, will make this playoffs this year, absolutely. Next year, I definitely see them at least making it next year. But the year after that, when does Stamkos start falling off? When does he retire? He's 33 this year. I think this is the last year of his contract. What if he does sign a 2-more-year deal and he ends the season that last year? What if Kucherov finally age starts catching up to him? He can't keep up anymore. Vasilevsky already showing signs. Maybe it already is. Then it's left to Braden Point. Maybe a guy like him no longer. I don't know. I really like Braden Point, and I like all these guys. I really like the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've been one of my favorite teams, and it's just sad because what's hard for them mostly is that they can't really do anything either. They only have $2.9 million in cap space right now, and they have no wiggle room, and they don't really have any bad contracts. You could take a look at, like, Chiarelli's. Maybe you could say he's not worth the $6 million, but sure, you move him out, but then there goes your second-line centerman, right? So, sure, you trade, like, Chiarelli away, and maybe you go for a guy like, let's say, Elias Lindholm. Sure, $4 million back, but he signed for only 1 year. Maybe he sees these cracks showing and he runs away somewhere else, right? Or he's going to want a raise as well. You won't be able to keep him. So you got to keep a guy like Chiarelli at $6 million, because a guy like Lindholm, you bring him on, he's going to go up to $8 million for his next deal. They can't go for a guy like Toffoli or a Hanifin or a DeBrincat, who's now off the market now. They can't sign him. They've got no wiggle room. They've got nowhere. They can't trade away a guy like Chernak's contract. It's just making a bigger problem. Sure, say they trade Chernak, bring on Lindholm. Sure, their top six is more solidified and more competitive, but now their defense is even weakened even more. So this team, it's just what happens to the Empires, the Blackhawks, the Penguins, the Washington Capitals, all these teams that are just so good for that amount of time. The Boston Bruins, the team that they're right behind in points for the last 9 years. It starts falling off. They start going away. And this team, it's the end of that ride. The reign has been glorious. but it's over. The time is over, and the window is closed. And that's just sad, because they're going to be in that state now where maybe with the cap raising, they might be able to start being more competitive. That has kind of hampered them a lot lately. They haven't been able to re-sign guys like Ross Colton, sign a guy like Tarasenko. Let's say if the bubble stuff and all the cap being stalled, it wasn't like that, and maybe at this point they were already at $90 million cap, things could be different. They could have kept a guy like Ross Colton, signed a guy like Patrick Kane or Vladimir Tarasenko, but they've been hampered by that, and they've just been unfortunate. But you know what? All good things must come to an end. This team's reign is over, and for Tampa Bay, I know this kind of seems like a grim video, but I love this team. They're definitely going to still be a playoff team and competitive, but they've got no draft picks left. They trade them all away, and guys like Jeannot, who knows? Maybe a guy like Tanner Jeannot and Brandon Hagel and guys like Nick Paul can really start showing up a little bit more. Each of them becomes 60-point getters. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but guys like Nick Paul only being a 30-point guy, not so amazing. Jeannot, maybe he's not that. What did he get, like 50 points that one last season when he was really good as a rookie? Maybe he's not that kind of guy, and they traded away all those draft picks for him. Brandon Hagel does look good, but is he really a centerpiece? Who knows? Maybe we'll have to see. Maybe I am an idiot. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and next season Nick Paul and Jeannot will both be 60-point guys, and Hagel will become a 74-point scorer, right? Maybe something like that will happen, and Tampa Bay will be just fine. But I guess only time will tell. But for now, I know this is kind of grim, and it wasn't really supposed to be, but it was just kind of me wanting to talk about some teams. And for the Lightning here, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the window's closed. Their time's been amazing, and they've produced Hart Trophy winners and Rocket Richard guys, but other than that, I think time's up. But that is all I got to say. So thank you for watching this, and please, I'm begging you, pick up your free subscription. Please. And until next time, too sweet, have an amazing day, and ta-ta for now.